Hello and welcome to Cash Chats, the podcast from Be Clever With Your Cash that helps you make the most of your money. I'm Amelia Murray.
And I'm Andy Webb. Some of the stories we're looking at in Your Money this week include help if you are struggling with your energy bills, potential chaos on the cards if you're trying to sell or buy a home in the next 6 months, plus how millions are excluded from cheaper supermarket prices. All of that and our deals of the week coming up in episode 432 of Cash Chats. So obviously, guys, this is coming out at the start of the week rather than the end of the week, which is a bit different for this type of episode. But because we had the budget last Thursday and we've got the Bank of England base rate announcement coming this coming Thursday, we thought we'd switch it around a little bit. So don't worry, it isn't a Thursday or a Friday. It is the start of the week. We've just moved things around. But when we do these episodes, we always start off talking about what's been going on with our money ourselves. So Amelia, what's been going on with you?
I've got two success stories, which are both to do with refunds.
Great.
And I wanted to share them because I think it's, we've spoken about complaining, not just to, get our views aired, but in terms of getting the results that we want. And just quickly, the two refunds I got. So I had an issue with Uber. So I had a bit of drama getting home from my holiday a couple of weeks ago. And we were trying to get the only thing we could get home was a cab or an Uber because the flight was delayed, yada, yada, yada. It was our only kind of way to get home. So found an Uber, waited for it for ages. And when we got home, the Uber was way more expensive than the estimated price. So it was supposed to be £58, which was an expensive Uber anyway. And we ended up paying over almost £80. So it was really expensive. And the cab driver did say it's going to be a little bit more expensive because the A23 is closed, but didn't kind of give any indication of how much. So we got back and I was like, oh my God, we really need to say something. I was like, let's just say something, complain to Uber. So we did. And I didn't really have much hope that they'd refund us, but they did. They refunded us the difference. So I was like, yes, that was a win. And then secondly, this is about kind of those subscriptions and those free trials. So my boyfriend is an avid Duolingo fan. He's got something like over 400 days streak of keeping up with his daily practices.
Is it working? Is he fluent?
I mean, he's learning Spanish.
That's good.
I wouldn't say he's fluent just yet, but he's making headway. He signed up for a week-long free trial. I didn't know about any of this until he'd been charged £120 because it had lapsed and he was no longer in the free trial. So he complained. He was supposed to be notified 2 days before the trial had ended, which is kind of what Duolingo told you. Because I was like, it's sort of your responsibility. You've got to make the note in your diary of when the free trial ends so you can cancel it. But this is something that they kind of offer, like the alert. But anyway, after kind of back and forth, he also got refunded. He was, I've never seen him kind of quite so irate about something before, but it really goes to show that just, say something. Don't just accept that you're in the wrong or you might have made a mistake. Do push back and push for that refund. So yeah, those are my two, well, not really both of mine, but 2 wins of the week.
That's good, isn't it? I think sometimes people get put off because it's only a few quid. And you're like, oh, I know I'm in the right, but the amount of time and hassle it's going to take to go back and forth and sort this stuff out, like, is it really worth your time? And so I think a lot of time, myself included, you might sort of step back from it, but they get away with it and they don't change their practices and they'll do this a lot. And those little few quid here or there with some people can really add up. So definitely think if you are able to, take the stand, make that kind of effort to get the money back, even if it's a small amount, it's definitely worth doing it. But certainly large amounts of money you were talking about there, that is fantastic to get that back in your wallet. That's brilliant. My week, I haven't got something that's necessarily about how my spending or savings has been going on, but at the weekend, I was helping fundraise at our local bonfire and fireworks. And I do this sort of most years in my local area. And it's a free event, but obviously, we do want donations to help make it happen because it's an expensive thing to organise as volunteers, but also raising money for a local charity as well. But what we've obviously found, and this is the same where anyone is trying to raise money, is people don't have cash, or fewer and fewer people do have any cash on them. So you're standing there politely asking them if they can afford it, if they're able to donate, because it really helps. And people go, oh, I've got no change. But last year and this year, the secret weapon was we now have card readers. A small number of card readers, and they aren't perfect, and it's linked to the signal on your phone. There's a lot of people, then that can fail. But it's surprising how many people, as soon as you say you've got a card reader, it's not like it's catching them out. They're trying to sort of don't want to give. They're saying, I've got no change. They generally do want to actually give, which was really lovely to see. And people really want to, tap on the card reader, or we've got a QR code that will take people through to the GoFundMe page, and also a text donate number as well. So I was really, really pleased with that people actually do want to, if they give them the ability to donate, people are still keen to do it. So that was really lovely from the weekend.
Do you find that the donation amount goes up more with a card machine? Because if you reach into your pocket and you've just got like a handful of coins, and you're like, there you go, that will do as my donation. But with this, it's more deliberate, isn't it? You've kind of got to input a certain amount, probably a round number, and probably
It's set
pounds.
at £5 for us because you're having to do it every time,
Okay.
quite at a high speed. So actually, the text donate and the tap to pay were set at a fiver. So from that point of view, yeah, probably. And actually, some people did have actual money, but it's notes because again, if they've gone to the bank and they have got some money out, it's rare that they've then spent it and got the change back. So we're actually a much larger number of notes being donated this year, including for the first time I saw some with King Charles on there. So I've taken some photos for us to use on the website, some stock imagery for us to put on there in the articles we write. But yeah, really interesting. I mean, this is a bigger problem with people fundraising and people wanting to give. So not everyone will. The other week, someone from the big issue didn't have any money. They didn't have a card reader, so I couldn't buy a copy off them. So it's not saying this is going to fix everything for everyone, but it's certainly worth, if you want to donate, do just ask people if they have that ability for you to, any of those, text to donate, QR code to a fundraising page, or even tap with a card. So let's get on to the first story. Now, obviously, the budget has dominated the news for the last week and a bit, and including over the weekend. And in the episode which we released last Wednesday, when the budget finished, we covered most of the key announcements, plus a number that were hidden in the documentation as well. So we won't go over all of those again. But there was one story that sort of come about that wasn't mentioned at all in the speech, and it wasn't really even mentioned in the hundreds of pages of documentation that also came out straight away afterwards. Because rather than announce anything new, it's the absence of this particular reform that's going to have an impact. And this concerns stamp duty. Now, going back 2 years to the mini budget of September 2022, and obviously we think about that now, about all the kind of unfunded tax cuts and all these sort of things that are going on that caused the absolute meltdown and chaos that we had at the time. But there were two measures which kind of maybe been forgotten about a little bit that were announced that are still in play right now, temporary measures. And this was increasing the threshold when you start paying stamp duty from £125,000 to £250,000. So that basically means at the moment you don't pay stamp duty on any proportion of the property below 250k. And then also, if you're a first-time buyer, the threshold where you pay no stamp duty at all was also increased from £300,000 to £425,000. So right now, that's what's in place. But to say, nothing was announced on this. No reform of stamp duty, and importantly, no extension of these increased thresholds. So what that means is, from March 2025, it will revert back to those lower thresholds, which means if you are buying your first home or you are moving house as the home buyer, you will be high likelihood is that you'll be paying more in stamp duty from March 2025, which also means that it's expected now we're going to see a bit of a rush of people trying to buy houses and complete houses over the next 5 months really before that comes into play in the spring, to try and save some money, which also then has a kind of another knock-on effect in that if there's a lot of people trying to buy houses in this time and push things through, then prices could start to increase, and those savings you might be hoping to get by completing earlier and paying a lower amount of stamp duty, you might just pay that anyway in a higher evaluation of the property. So again, there's not really a huge amount you can do to, you can try and avoid it by, say, trying to get the property through before then, or maybe you can wait and see if potentially prices do go down. And if they are lower, you might find then the stamp duty kind of, levels out, or maybe is even less as an overall amount. But they are kind of predicting, this article that we're put in the show notes from the BBC quotes Nationwide saying they expect to see a slump in sales for the rest of 2025 once the thresholds go back to where they were. So again, if this is a kind of potentially, if you're selling your house, you might want to get a move on now and try and sell it before then, when people are rushing to do it, rather than wait when you find there might not be many buyers around and you don't get the asking price that you're going for.
Oh my God, I feel like the property market hasn't been level or kind of stable for so long now. If you think, I'm thinking back to like the pandemic where there was like the freeze and then it opened up again. And then, I was trying to buy a house just after the mini budget, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I was like, I never want to do that again. And even hearing you talk about, potential things that could happen in the property market is making my palms sweat, because I'm just remembering how mad it was, and kind of you're all trying to time the market and play the game. And there's kind of nothing you can do about it. There's never a perfect time to buy a house, I don't think.
No.
But anyway, if you are, good luck.
Yes. And also, I mean, one of the things, I'll talk about this more on Thursday when we talk about whatever the Bank of England say when it comes to the base rate. But there is also some kind of commentary after the budget, an expectation that maybe the Bank of England won't be decreasing the base rate as fast or even as far as was predicted just a few weeks ago. Again, I'll talk more about what people are saying that on Thursday. But obviously, when it comes to the housing market, the knock on there as well could well be that mortgage rates don't fall again in the same way as fast. So you might find, that anyone hoping that rates are going to get cheaper and houses more affordable, again, that doesn't really happen anytime soon as well.
And that will be me in that bucket of people. I'm literally starting the conversation with my mortgage broker last week for a remortgage my options. So yeah, can't wait. It's all very exciting, isn't it? Now, I don't want to kind of rinse out the budget fatigue because it has been a really busy week of news. But one thing I think is very important to point out is a story that's come out recently about fraudsters jumping on to the budget news to try and scam people. So just be really careful. There's been texts and emails appearing from government departments like HMRC offering things that are related to the budget. So, for example, winter heating subsidies with a link to click through for the payments. So this comes after the winter fuel payments were changed, so only pensioners on benefits can get them. So it's definitely on lots of people's minds. And these scams are just taking advantage of those people who are worried about, not having this payment anymore. There was also a fake BBC article which was headlined by the order of Rachel Reeves, residents will start receiving income from taxes. And this was offering a 2,300 social benefit scheme payment. With that one, it was asking for a £200 deposit so you could then get the further payments. One of these articles also quoted the LBC presenter Ian Dale, which was endorsing the scheme. There's another one, which is a copycat government website offering another £900 payment. And essentially, the scams themselves are nothing new. The way they work, they're either, text scams or email scams designed to either steal your information, asking for your personal information, your name, your address, date of birth, payment details, or some of them are also trying to take payment from you before kind of disappearing. But they're moving very quickly. We see this quite a lot after, big announcements or big news where they really are very adaptable to what's going on. So they are just, changing the essence of the scam to kind of relate to what people are thinking about. So if you are, receiving any of these, please don't click on anything. Make sure you're checking the website. That fake BBC article was really good. But you will be able to see, check the URL really carefully and just be really careful at this time.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? How often we talk about this and how you get little changes. So yeah, really, the number one thing you can do, despite any kind of like new rules or plans that are in place, the best thing you can do is just be extra vigilant and check out for other people as well who you think might not be as savvy as you. Just make sure they're not falling for these things as well. You mentioned there, obviously, that there was no change in the budget last week in terms of forthcoming changes to the winter fuel allowance, which is a shame. So we know so many people are going to be, older people will be struggling this year, particularly with the bill, price cap going up as well. But there are some ways you can get help. And actually this week, a new fund has opened for application. This is the British Gas Energy Trust. You do have to be a British Gas customer to apply for this, but there's up to £2,000 available for you to help clear some existing debt. So you need to have, if you want a prepayment meter, you need to have a debt of between £50 and £2,000. If you want a credit account, the debt needs to be between £250 and £2,000. You also need to be at risk of fuel poverty and not had any assistance from what they call any money advice agencies in the last 6 months, or not had a grant from that British Gas Energy Trust in the last year in order to be eligible for this money from this energy support fund. So certainly if you are with British Gas and that sounds like something you might be eligible for, do go and look for this. If you're not with British Gas, then there are other places you can go as well. British Gas itself has an individuals and families fund that's open to everybody, no matter who you're with, while many of the other energy companies, so EDF, E.ON, Octopus, OVO, Scottish Power and others do have their own hardship funds as well. So again, we're talking here about people who are really struggling, but there is money out there. There is ways to try and get some help. So well worth looking into this if you are eligible.
It's also worth checking if you qualify for government help as well. So there's lots of different schemes and things available. So there's free installation boiler grants, the warm home discount, winter fuel payment, cold weather payments. Now, these will depend on your circumstances. So it may be that you need to be in receipt of pension credit or if you're on certain benefits. But if you are looking for also general support around energy bills, the National Energy Action is a charity which offers energy advice. So don't be, or if it's you or if it's someone else, don't be afraid to give them a call. Now, we have spoken about child trust funds before on the podcast. So not that long ago, we were talking about, the sheer amount of these child trust funds that are lost. They haven't been claimed by 18 to 22-year-olds. And there's thought to be around 700,000 of these accounts that have yet to be claimed. And we've got more details of, if this is you, of how to claim lost child trust funds, but also other assets on the website. But there's this recent story where a boy has discovered when he turned 18, his child trust fund was only worth £12.39. So what we've seen is that the average child trust fund that has yet to be claimed is worth around £2,000. With him, he was only expecting about £300. And then when he got the letter when he turned 18, which he was waiting for, it came up with this tiny figure, £12.39, which was a bit of a shock to him and his family. But when they looked into it, it turned out that the providers of this child trust fund had been changed quite a few times, and it ended up with Columbia Threadneedle, which is like a multi-million-pound investment company. And they had started charging an admin fee of £30 a year since 2013, which essentially wiped out any growth and then started attacking the balance before he could even have a claim to it. Now, the maximum fee allowed to be applied to a child trust fund is 1.5% a year, and this is significantly more. And the way the article left it was, the family were unhappy, critics were also unhappy, and they were like, actually, this feels like the company could very easily, and discretionary wipe these charges. And the next step will be to make a complaint and go to the ombudsman. But yeah, it was amazing. I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is quite a unique one, isn't it? Because a lot of the child trust funds, as we know, people had the money put in by the government, but they didn't really interact with them. So it was just kind of sitting there doing its thing, and not something maybe people might look at on a regular basis. But any account, this can happen. And we talked, at the beginning about, not realizing a trial had finished and charges were coming out. Any account that you've got, do keep an eye on it and things aren't coming out that you don't realize, because you might be able to stop them completely. You might be able to get a refund, as you did, Amelia. You might be able to change your product, and they can come from all different areas. But particularly as well, thinking about those ones with investments as well, or just general sort of flat charges, which really can eat away. So yeah, some homework for you. Just check you aren't being charged extra funds and losing out, because you will be absolutely losing out if you're overpaying there. Speaking of people who are losing out, this next story I want to talk about is from Which, and they've been looking into the member prices that pretty much are everywhere now. Pretty much all the supermarkets, we've all seen them. Nectar prices, club card prices, they're all at it. If you don't have your loyalty card to scan at the till or even online, you won't pay. You'll pay over the odds. Not just avoid a discount. Often these prices are higher than you'll pay elsewhere. But there are people being excluded from this from a number of ways, a couple of ways. One of them is because there's often a minimum age that you have to be in order to join these schemes. So if you are under 18 or in a couple of cases under 16, then tough luck, you're paying full price. And also some of them require some form of access to an app or a website in order to either sign up in the first place or even just to use the scheme on a regular basis. So again, then you've got particularly maybe older people there also being excluded. And it turns out, there are so many people paying well over the odds because of this. Now, a couple of things to worth knowing here. So the scheme-wise, the digital access ones where it's required are Asda, Ice and Lidl and Waitrose. So it's worth knowing about that. You have to be a minimum of 18 for Asda, Iceland, Lidl, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, and Waitrose, and a minimum of 16 for Co-op and Morrison's. So what can you do about this? Well, I say if it's the online access which is an issue for you, potentially you can ask someone to sign up for you. Often it's just about that initial process of signing up, and then you can got a card that you can use to get those prices. And when it comes to the age thing, now some of them might let you add a child to the account. Sainsbury's, for example, will let you add a child to a Nectar account. Others don't. But Nikki in our team, when she's written about this previously, she's got 3 boys, and they love a meal deal, a Tesco meal deal. So what she's done is on their phones, she has added via the Stocard app her club card to that, so they can at least scan it at the till and get that discount. So it might not technically be within the terms and conditions, but it's certainly a way that you might be able to help young people in your family get those savings, because they're pretty hefty now. They can really add up on stuff, and particularly those popular things like meal deals. You have to have these loyalty cards to get access. So an interesting one there in terms of exclusion. We see this quite a lot, and normally it's about older people rather than younger people, but certainly something to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of almost like a small, well, not small. There's millions of people who will be affected, but there is a bigger conversation about financial exclusion. Like I remember a few years ago, thinking about the difficulty that some people have with opening even like a basic bank account when they don't meet the criteria. They might not have a fixed address. So it's often the most vulnerable people who don't have this access to certain financial products or, deals like this, which would be the step towards, making their lives better. You need to have a bank account to get a job. You need to kind of have a fixed address to get the bank account to, it kind of becomes this, all of these things that add up to make your life easier. And this was quite shocking because, yeah, as you say, there have been there's a lot of criticism about the way that loyalty schemes have changed in recent years. So, rather than having the discounted prices for everyone, you're going that one step further to, getting people more, included and embedded into the loyalty scheme. But actually it is excluding people who don't have the access. And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, people who aren't necessarily digitally savvy just on like a basic level. I couldn't imagine my mum, for example, signing up for any of these schemes just because, she's used to, I don't think she's ever had a club card in her life because the steps it takes to get one, she just, I don't know, just wouldn't be at the forefront of her mind. So yeah, it is an interesting one and quite shocking with those. My next story is about, I guess kind of rip-offs. So complete savings, you might have come across them when you've bought from an online retailer. So you'll see an advert, maybe if you've bought something on Argos, the Argos website, or Trainline. I always see it on Trainline, where you've just made a purchase and you see this little pop-up box from Complete Savings, which says, click here to claim your, I don't know, £20.67 cashback, which will be credited on your card. Seen them quite a lot. But essentially what's happened here is MSE have made a complaint about these adverts following lots of people making complaints about getting sucked into a subscription that they didn't know they were signing up for. So if you saw this box, it would look like you are just being rewarded with cashback. However, when you click, it's actually signing you up for a subscription that costs £18 a month. It is a cashback site. So it is, if you use it right, you will be, making earnings on your purchases. But the issue here is lots of people don't realize that's what they're being signed up for. So, and also with the retailers, they all get commission as well. So they have an incentive to kind of keep these boxes on the website. So with this complaint, the ASA has said the advert can no longer appear in its current form. So Complete Savings must make it clear to consumers that to obtain the free cashback or welcome reward, they have to enter into a paid monthly subscription and actively claim the reward, and make it sufficiently clear that it's necessary to make a second purchase in order to be eligible for the reward. So this is really positive in terms of the clarity of the advert. But if you are concerned, if you've kind of seen these boxes and you might have clicked on it, do check your bank statements to see if any payments have been taken out of your account. You can cancel the recurring payments. So you can contact Complete Savings, either emailing the complaints team or giving them a call, and we can put the details in the show notes. And then if you have realized that you've been signed up without realizing, or you feel you've been misled, you can complain. Now, this is not guaranteed that you will get a refund, but put it in writing and see what happens, because it's definitely worth kind of making a complaint, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, just to see, if the company will do the right thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, complete savings, because it's one that readers have been in touch with over the years. It's always been a couple of people have used. And why aren't you writing about complete savings? I'm saving this amount every month, and so on. And the big reason I've always avoided it is because the dodginess of that sign up and the lack of clarity that people will be paying for this on a regular basis. And then also, you don't really know what's there until you've signed up. So I've always been very reticent about giving it any kind of airtime at all. But so more and more people have been talking about it. And so we did actually get Nikki to investigate it earlier this year and write a full review of it. And she was actually very pleasantly surprised to find the size of the offers, the amount of cashback you could earn, was actually pretty good, actually very competitive, obviously better than what you might get with Quidco and Top Cashback. However, you have got that fee. Now, there are ways that you might be able to avoid that fee every single month. And again, we've covered in our reviews the kind of the tactics to approach when you first sign up to try and make it easier for you to avoid that fee each month, or at least claim it back. And there's a bit of admin every month you'd have to do that. But it's still there. The reason they work like this is because so many people do get caught out. And it's that kind of thing, well, okay, some people can, if you're smart with it, you pay attention to it, you may well find this is a better cashback site for you than other ones. But if you're not, and if you're not paying attention, or you're not even plugged in like you guys are listening or watching this right now, who are maybe a bit more savvy and across stuff, they'll be raking it in elsewhere. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of them for that sort of dodgy tactics they've had in getting people to sign up for. But if you are confident that you might be able to do this sort of take advantage of it, then maybe it's worth a look. But certainly do read our review first of all before you go ahead and sign up. That's, of course, if you're even aware that you were signing up in the first place. Let's do our deals of the week as well. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to do them last week with the budget coverage. Some of the things have obviously finished. A lot of the deals were over the weekend. And I would say, although we do this roundup on the podcast each week, we do also have on a Saturday on our Instagram, in fact, all our social channels, a kind of roundup of all the other deals that might go along. So if you haven't already followed us on any of those, or don't get our newsletter on a Thursday, please do, because then you'll keep across those. But we'll tell you about a few of them that are still available, and a few more actually which are newer ones, which we actually won't include into our newsletter this week. The first one of these is around Bailey's. Talked about member prices earlier on from supermarkets. One of the big ones that come around every year is the litre of Bailey's at Sainsbury's for £10, which is, if you want Bailey's, this is a very, very good price because it's a low price anyway, and it's a larger bottle than normal. Now, this starts on the 6th of November and it runs until the 19th of November. And remember, you will need a Nectar card at the till to get it at that price. Also, supermarket-wise, I've mentioned these before. These are Christmas supermarket saver schemes where you add some money on the card and they give you a bonus for you to spend at Christmas. And potentially can be worth having a look at. There's one more left now, and that's Asda. The deadline for this is the 10th of November. Up to £15 free you can get, although to get that top freebie, you will have to add £280 to the scheme. So you've got to be sure you are going to spend that money in Asda at the supermarket. But that's a deadline for that, 10th of November. And one other new one before I pass over to Amelia. This is around National Trust passes. I reckon 4 or 5 times a year, these are given away for free by the Daily Mirror and other titles published by a company called Reach, a lot of local ones. They have just released another load of these valid until mid-December for a family pass. So basically you can go, an adult, 2 adults and 2 kids can go for a day out over the next sort of 4 or 5 weekends. So it's a good money saver. And you can get these for free. We will have details of that over at becleverwithyourcash.com.
And you get to see the gorgeous autumnal leaves.
Yes.
So yeah, love it. 2 from me. You can get 30 days free of Paramount Plus, the TV streaming service, when you buy a multi-pack of Staro Pramen beer. It's really easy. There's a QR code on the packaging. There's also a promotional website, which the code will take you through to. All you have to do is enter your details and the last 4 numbers of the barcode, and that runs until the 31st of January. And then we love this deal over at Be Clever With Your Cash. This is the Escapes Cinema. So every month there is tickets that you can get to one selected film. So this month it's a film called Layla, and that is on the 11th of November. This is mainly independent cinemas, but you also might find a few picture houses and real cinemas in the list too.
There is one other deal, which we're not going to go into detail right now, because it's only literally been announced this morning as we record this. So we will cover it in more detail on the website and the YouTube channel and the podcast again very soon. This is a £150 switching deal from Santander. So again, there will be details of that on the website by the time you listen to this. If you do want to read any of the news stories that Amelia and I spoke about earlier on, or any of the deals that we have just covered, you can find them as ever over at becleverwithyourcash.com.
And that's it. Thanks so much for joining us.
As we mentioned, it is the Bank of England's next Monetary Policy Committee meeting on Thursday. So we'll have a video with you on the YouTube channel, an article on the website straight away within an hour or so of that announcement, telling you what it means for you and your money. And an episode on the podcast will be live in all the podcasting apps on Friday morning. So we will see you then. Cheers.
Bye.